Welcome everybody. This is episode 4, Coach Quil podcast. We got a special guest today. Our first female guest, Adrianna Hahn. How you doing, huh?
Yes. What's up, Coach? Coach Quil?
Nah,
I
you
miss
the
you, my
coach
guy.
now. You the coach
I
now.
know. I know, right? I never thought I would be, really. But no, this is great. Thanks for having me on. I'm super excited to, definitely dive into things and talk about, basketball and our relationship and where, how we started. But no, this is awesome. Thanks for having me.
No problem, no problem. So we're just gonna start it off. What age did you start playing basketball?
So I started literally when I could remember picking up a ball. Um, and honestly, I don't even remember that time because I was so young.
Right.
I feel like my dad just introduced me to playing in a ball with a ball in my house, and then boom, probably third grade. I was getting to it outside shooting every day, all the time.
Okay. And where did you like first start playing basketball? Like basketball leagues, like when you were younger?
Yes. Well, definitely the YMCA. I
Okay.
feel like that's where everybody starts. And then I actually played in an all boys league at the Hicks Anderson Community Center in Wilmington, which I'm still affiliated with to this day.
Wow.
And that kind of sparked my, competitive nature a little bit on the court. So I love that time. And then, I went to Immaculate Heart of Mary in Wilmington, played there in middle school for a little bit. And then I was at Ursuline by seventh grade. So I kind of knew where I was going to be for high school.
Wow, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Now, when you played at the Hicks Center, was it any other boys that you remember that was on your team? Like, who was? Do you remember?
Yep. And that's the crazy part is because I still talk to them to this day. And they were also really successful. Mikey Dixon, he played at Sanford and then went on to play at a couple schools in college. I know that he transferred to TCU, I'm pretty sure,
Right.
and is there now. There was Marcus Christmas
Mm,
was on my team, Miles Christmas, his brother. And, honestly, at the time, everybody kind of had nicknames. I didn't really remember their first full
right,
names.
right,
But, it's just funny to see how, like, when you start at a young age, how those relationships can last a lifetime. And, when I was in fourth grade at the time, I was scared to be in this league. I was the only girl. I came from a different area. You know how it is.
right,
So it took me a while to adjust. But then when I started balling out and showing my skills, they took me right in as family.
right.
And, you know, I also built a very different competitive nature style of play that a lot of kids don't develop if they don't play in different environments and around different kids and different styles of basketball. So I was able to be different coming from multiple perspectives in a sense as the type of basketball player that I was, which was great. Um, so now I know why my dad put me in that league in fourth grade.
Do you feel though, as a girl growing up, it's better to play with boys rather than boys that are better than you, rather than girls that you're better than?
1,000%. I played against boys actually during my college time. Now you think like eventually their physical capacity kind of just overpowers you as a women's basketball
Right,
player. But at a young age, you have to build that competitive nature. You have to play against boys that are faster than you, stronger than you, so that when you go to your girls' league, you're essentially the boy on the court, right? You're just
mm,
by far the standout. You're faster. Your footwork speed is better. You can cut. Your ball handling is tighter. It just obviously shows. And, with my training right now in my basketball business, I put my boys and girls together. Even
mm,
if my boys are in fifth, sixth grade, they're playing with my high school girls group. Or vice versa. If I have a girl that's in fourth, fifth grade, she's playing with my middle school, eighth grade boys group if the skills and the potential is there.
right,
Now, if they're not successful right from the jump, that's fine. If they're failing at every moment, losing the ball, can't get their shot off, the game is way too fast for them. To me, being thrown in the fire is 10 times more better. You're going to build skills out of that naturally than kind of just staying in your comfort zone and being surrounded by kids who are everybody's at the same level and you're not competing, you're not getting better, you're not being challenged, and you're not being forced to get better in a sense. You have to do that. And so for me, like I said, yeah, in college at Villanova. I called Mikal Bridges. I was like, yo, play me one-on-one. Let me see if I can get a shot off. And I didn't get a shot off, right? He's 6'7", 6'8", and I didn't want to accept that. But I was so quick with my moves, my step backs, me just creating and imagining what other scenarios I can do to make this happen. And even though it didn't, I still took that time and experience and knew that I had gotten better. So 100%.
Now, you said you went to middle Ursuline at 7th grade. Now, what made you go to Ursuline, and did you feel any pressure, like knowing that Delle, arguably the best, the best player to ever come from Delaware? Did you feel any pressure coming into that school?
Not at all. So long story short, when I was in like 4th grade, I went to the Ursuline summer camp, and she was a high school counselor. She's like senior, and I was kind of a standout amongst the other kids. And she came up to me and told me she wanted to take me to a WNBA game. Didn't even know her really, just knew her as Elena, the McDonald's All-American, going to UConn, 6'5" girl.
Right.
So we end up, after camp one day, she takes me to a WNBA game down in DC. It was a crazy experience. She knew all the players already, and she was still in high school. And I ended up sleeping at her house, and it was almost just this, and then going to camp the next day. But in a sense, for her to give back and show that relationship with me and start that, one, that's how I was connected to John Noonan and Ursuline. So that's how I literally got into Ursuline. But just seeing that the relationship that she created for me to now go through this journey similar to hers was the start of it all, really. I knew I wanted to be the best because she was the best. Every day I'm in the gym, I'm looking at the walls, and it's Elena Deladon's name everywhere. She has every trophy, every accomplishment, it's stacked. And not only did I want that, but I wanted to be bigger than her. And, I wasn't. I never went to the WNBA. I didn't play professionally. I would definitely say, we're competitive. I was playing her one-on-one in training. Once I met John Noonan in high school, then me and her would get in the gym all the time. Right. She showed me the way a little bit. And I wanted, like I said, I wanted to make my name bigger than Elena Deladon for sure in the state of Delaware. I will say, to be honest, I think I'm actually kind of there with the amount of other opportunities that I've built for myself and my network. But, as basketball players, we're very competitive. I think when you are a great basketball player, you want to be the best. So that conversation will always exist, and you never will put yourself or accept yourself as second best.
Right.
So the competitive nature that I saw from her, just having been so successful, I knew I wanted to be even bigger.
So 8th grade at Ursuline, you can play varsity. What was that first year like playing varsity as a middle schooler, and who was on your team, and how did y'all do that year?
I'm not gonna lie, in the beginning it was hell. Ursuline's an all-girls school, so you have that. There's a lot of tension with that. Everybody knew I was this upcoming 8th grader that was very confident in her skill set and very confident on the court, and knew she was going to play on that varsity team before trials happened. Right. And that was the kind of character that I presented all the time, on and off the court. So people kind of didn't like that. And I actually wasn't really wanted on the varsity team. It was until we started winning a lot, and I was playing and making great basketball plays, and a lot of other people were scoring more because I was handling the ball and putting them in situations, and everything was just flowing. Now, I'm in this team. At the time, we didn't really have any standout Delaware players. It was kind of, Elena and I are 7 years apart. So it was, for Ursuline, it was a time where nothing really kind of happened.
Right.
They had some solid players, Brianna Collins, Mary Kate Williams, but in the quarterfinals of that year at the Bob Carpenter Center, boom, I tear my ACL. Wow. I'm 12 years old. And, after this long season, we were winning. We thought we could go really far in the tournament. Our team chemistry was awesome. And then this terrible thing happened. And, I was completely devastated. I thought my playing career was over. I thought I would never be the same type of player, beast that I was on the court. And, that was a long journey in itself that I'm sure, we'll talk about later. But from that 8th grade year, I'm so thankful that one, Delaware allowed, middle schools and high schools to do something like that. I had 5 years of high school experience. I was very young when I did it, so I learned a lot. I think the accountability that I developed as a player helped me also transition into, that strong, dominant point guard, shooting guard. So, I consider every level to be something where I learned, even though I tore my ACL, and you're thinking, wow, that's the worst thing to ever happen. In a sense, it was kind of one of the best things to ever happen.
Right. Now you said you were 12 years old when you played at the Bob, your first time?
Yep, I was 12. So if we're in March of my 8th grade year, I was 12, and then I turned 13 that May. So I was kind of like, closer to 13, but still, the surgeons kind of didn't really even know what to do. They were like, "You're so young, you're still growing.
Right.
How could we fix this?"
Right.
So
No, it's just crazy because most 12-year-old girls are deciding whether they want to take basketball serious or not. You know what I mean? It's like that.
Oh no, I was
cheerleading. Yeah. Want to cheerlead or play basketball, and you're like at the Bob.
I feel you. I got to take some kind of my experiences and my vision sometimes out of, with my girls and my boys, even like they didn't have those same expectations as I did. They didn't have that same vision as I did. They're not in that same place and time, the skill sets that I had when I was in 8th grade. So I kind of have to remember that and, work with everybody and where they are in the basketball, at their basketball life, and take that into consideration, because it does come with a lot of pressures. Like, just because the story sounds great and, you have the ups and downs, and then there's this big goal at the end of the road, you're going to think that it sounds great, but really, like, it was hell. It was hell. I'm crying every day in rehab at the facility. Like, my surgery, I lost my summer that year. I didn't play AAU. That's a huge season for AAU, 8th grade summer going into freshman year.
Right.
So it's tough.
What was that rehab process like, especially for girls that, go, unfortunately, that's a popular injury amongst girls in basketball. What was that rehab process like, and what was your mentality kind of going into it, especially being that you were so young?
Probably for the first month, I cried every day, whether that was from physical pain or just emotional pain.
Right.
Both even sometimes, which actually heightened it more. But then by the time you have to be committed, again, your vision. I started from scratch. I literally had to teach myself how to walk again. Where do you see yourself in 6 months from now? Where do you see yourself in a year from now? As an 8th grader, I wanted to win 5 state championships, all the way 8th grade to senior year. And I truly believe that I could have and should have, but there were some things that happened, like this situation. Right. So after this happened, I said, I'm winning the state championship next year. Facts. No one's taking that away from me. It's going to happen. All of my goals, my training, my rehab, I'm thinking of that ring. I'm thinking of the buzzer beater, running out onto the court with your team, whatever. And that's exactly what I did. So, you have to have goals when you're going through tough times. You have to vision yourself being at a place and time and seeing yourself being in that spot, in that space, and then believing in it. And, the journey sucks, but by your 3rd, 4th month, you're feeling really strong. You're getting faster. You're more athletic. In a sense, like I said before, I turned into a better player after my rehab and my injuries. And that wouldn't have just happened just going through the rehab. That wouldn't, just doing the exercises and going there every day doesn't make you become better or more great from who you were before. It's your mentality about it. It's what you put into it that you're going to get out. And a lot of people and young kids, when you're 12, 13 years old, don't apply themselves like that or think in that way.
Right.
But my life experiences before, with Elena, Delle, and playing in the boys league and being in these environments where it was so challenging, you couldn't show signs of fear. You couldn't show signs of weakness. why would I ever do that when I'm by myself doing this rehab or, dealing with my own journey? It's just not in my nature. It's not in my nature at all. And, it's hard to build that as a player, but once you do it at a young age, you never look back and you kind of really don't change. It only gets bigger and stronger and grows.
Now you said y'all won y'all chip your first you won your first championship your freshman year after you tore your ACL your eighth grade year. Who did y'all play in that championship game?
So my freshman year, we played Sanford, which
Okay.
was definitely the best team in the state. And in the regular season, we lost to them, actually.
Is that when
So
they had Allison? Did they have Allison then?
they had Amber Jenright as point guard.
Ooh,
They
okay.
had this was the year, Andrea Hines had just left. She was really athletic. They
Okay.
had Angelise White as their post. So they were, they had about 4 or 5 D1 kids.
Wow.
And, Ursuline, it was no D1. I mean, I was a potential D1 kid.
Right,
That's
right.
what we're talking about at this time. So, you know, even losing that regular season game, I was like, we're winning this game, right? And I actually thought, I had these fears that we would lose by 30 just because Sanford was a competitive, high-level elite team. Marcus is a great coach. He instills in his players the same competitive nature that I had. So I knew that this was going to be a battle.
Right.
And, my team played so hard and so great. We actually beat them by 20 in the championship game.
Wow.
And, it was that in itself made it an even more greater feeling because not only did I know I was going to win this, but I know I gave it my all. I won it in the best way possible. It was just this amazing thing to see. A year ago, I was crying on this court. My knee felt like it was on fire, gripping in pain.
Right.
And then a year later, I'm smiling, crying, happy tears of joy, holding a state championship trophy with my team, cutting down the nets, front of the newspaper. It was exactly what I had imagined to happen a year before.
It's crazy.
So, that's where I knew, like, this journey is for me. I know who I am when it comes to my goals. I know how to motivate myself and be ambitious and get through obstacles and adversity. And, you can almost do anything in life.
Now, ninth going to 10th, that's summer you was able to play AAU. Who did you play AAU with that summer?
So I played for the Philadelphia Bells
Okay.
for about 4 years. I started with them in 7th grade and stopped about sophomore year. And then I went on to Team Takeover in DC for 2 years. But again, I had 2 other knee surgeries in high school. So I missed my sophomore year of summer going into my junior year. And, that is a huge year.
Right.
It's a huge year of summer for AAU. But Team Takeover was just more elite. I was on the first girls team for Team Takeover.
Okay.
We had everything paid for. It's just a whole different level. You have to get there. Nobody just starts off there.
Right.
And that was when I started getting major D1 looks, more exposure. And I also played a year up. So, I was the sophomore. Meanwhile, I'm playing with juniors who are already committed.
Right.
And, we had a Virginia commit, a Duke commit, Louisville, George Mason. 2 of us went to Villanova eventually. And, so we were stacked. We were killing it. And again, I was ready for that space, that environment. DC basketball, 100%.
Right.
They have such a different
What other girls
type of
was on
culture
that
now.
team? What other girls was on that team with you on Team Takeover?
Yep. So you had Lene Belton, who went to Duke. You had Ariana Freeman, who went to Louisville and ended up transferring to Colorado. You had Michaela Benson, who committed to University of Virginia and actually transferred to Georgetown, which is in my conference. So I ended up playing against my teammate.
Okay.
You had me, who went to Villanova, Raven James, who went to Villanova, where her dad, Ron James, was our coach. You had Taylor Dodson, who committed to George Mason, and her dad was the assistant coach. Chris Dodson, he's a big basketball coach in Virginia area.
Right.
So we, everybody's networked. We built our name, and the great thing about it is I still talk to these people to this day.
Wow.
And at the time, I kind of not, I was one of the stronger players, one of the best players, but
Mhm.
those girls were challenging me every day. They were like, we're not letting this younger girl come in
Right.
here and take all our minutes, be the standout. That's the competitive nature of basketball, and that's what I've seen kind of has gone away from this generation and their levels and how they compete.
Mhm.
But that's the best part about it, is that we could be best friends on and off the court, and at the same time we pushed each other. We were in each other's face. If somebody messed up or wasn't paying attention or turned the ball over, like, it's intense, because that
Right.
affects everybody. Everybody makes mistakes in basketball, but we were on each other like that. And we built really strong relationships from it.
Now, your sophomore year back at Ursuline, you're a champion already as a freshman. How did y'all do your sophomore year? What happened that year?
So my sophomore and junior year, the same thing happened. We lost to St. Elizabeth's in the semifinals. Ironically,
Oh,
for the two, yep. Ironically, for the two regular season games that we played them, both at Ursuline and at St. E's, we won both of them each year. It's hard to beat a team 3 times in one year. It's definitely capable. Like I said, we should have won
hmm
both. And it makes me mad, because I wanted all those rings, and I wanted to make that statement that I knew Elena Delle didn't have 5 rings. That was the one thing, how I was going to beat
mm,
her. That's your vision. And a couple of our players were hurt my junior year, so that kind of altered us. But St. E's had a great team too. They had, I think 2 or 3 low D1 kids, but things happen. And then from those sophomore and junior year where I lost, I was like, there is no way I'm leaving high school
right.
without another ring, or my last year I'm not going to get a ring. Like, there's no way. And at the same time, I was player of the year in my sophomore junior season. And so
Whoa.
I'm like, I'm player of the year and I couldn't bring my team to a ring. Like, that doesn't make sense. I'm pissed. So senior year, I got my ring, and even before, I had goals before that. The same process happened.
And I believe one of those years, St. Eve's actually did went on a going to win a championship when they had Macy Robinson and Jocelyn Rodriguez, who both of
Yeah.
y'all show too. But it's funny that you say that, because Deladon lost she lost her junior year, and she lost to St. Eve's with Khadijah Rushdown. That's
Oh yeah.
funny that you say that, because that's who she lost to, and that's who you lost to. So it's crazy how
No,
history
yeah. I believe,
got
like, I remember when I was little, I would watch them play. I would watch them compete against each other. It was like, honestly, it was like, who is the better one? I
Yeah,
will say,
you
just watch it.
people really
They
didn't
were
know.
different
People really
positions.
didn't know.
Yeah, and they're completely different positions, different styles of play for sure. But the mentality was the same.
Right.
And St. Eves and Ursuline have both, I will say, been like Catholic conference rivals for sure in the Wilmington area. Both very competitive programs and have a lot of history. So it makes sense, for that to transfer into my time as well.
Now, before your senior season, you commit to Villanova. What was your top 3 schools, and what made you decide to go to Villanova?
So what made me decide to go to Villanova was I wanted to stay close to home. I
Okay.
committed when I was 17, October of my junior year.
Okay.
And that's pretty early, because you have a good year and a half left of your time to figure out what school you're going to.
Right.
And I will say that at the time I was kind of just overwhelmed with the entire process. I had way too many schools calling me, wanting to come to my house, um, wanting to have me take unofficial visits to their campus. At the time, I would have had to pay for all of that. Not that that was a problem, but it just seemed more on my end when I had already visited schools that I liked, and I met coaches that I enjoyed and cared about me and really loved my skill set and knew that I would come into this program and have the green light. So, I called Elena Deladon, and she told me that she would have went to Villanova after transferring from UConn if they weren't in the same conference, but they were at the time. She
Uh,
loved Harry Peretta. She loved the 3-point offense, the green light to literally do whatever she wanted. And that was the type of player that I was already. So I needed to make sure that I went into a program where I could dominate in the same ways and not have restrictions from having to run this certain play or, your secondary, the team is first, even though that is a basketball concept. When you're a great player, you know that you are going to make basketball plays, and that's what it is. Right. So I actually called Villanova back 2 years later because they had offered me when I was a freshman, and I sort of cut all communication ties because I knew I wasn't going to go there. Right. I really wanted to play in the ACC conference, bigger football schools, more WNBA players came out of there, just a higher level, go to the NCAA tournament more consistently. Right. And I called Villanova and I was like, I think my priorities changed. I want to stay close to home. I want to build my name in a bigger way in a more smaller environment. Right. And they were psyched, and then I just committed. But at the time, I was looking at Stanford, Michigan State, Syracuse, NC State was actually definitely one of my top 3. NC State was kind of my vision, and I could play in the ACC conference. Right. They are kind of like one of the lower schools in that conference, surrounding by Duke and UNC. So I'm in the same area, and maybe I could heighten this program or get it to a higher level and still build my name in the best way. And I love their coach. So, it's hard to say because at the time I didn't really go take more official visits like that. But right. I was in communication with almost every school besides like Tennessee, UConn, and a couple out west schools.
So your senior year, you come off losing 2 times to St. E's, and you actually get some help this year. So you got an incoming 8th grader, kind of like you were with Alicia Lewis. Talk about what changed with y'all program, with y'all team when she came in, and how you embraced her to help you, in your senior year.
Yeah. So I knew exactly how to treat her because I was treated in that same situation. I knew exactly how to give her that best influence to make sure that when I left, she knew how to handle this entire team as a young freshman. Right. And she was, she's extremely talented, super quick guard. At the time, she didn't really shoot the ball a lot. She didn't want to score a lot. She didn't want to use her talents. And I knew that from being that timid little 8th grader where you are slow to dive into things because you're surrounded by older girls who try and take that away from you. But I made sure, that wasn't going to happen, that I needed her. I needed her to perform at her best at all times and to bring that confidence. And in a sense, it was only going to limit her and our team. So it was great. I think we had a great, 2-man game. And a lot of people think that you can't have a 2-man game with 2 guards. It has to be a guard and a post or something like that. But no, we were killing it. She just knew my style. She had that same basketball play that not a lot of Ursuline kids had. So for her to bring that in, knowing when I left, there was still going to be some sort of that basketball culture that remains there, was awesome. And I knew that she would be able to handle things. And we ended up winning a state championship together. So I think, I wanted to give her that too. I wanted to show her this is how it's supposed to be done. Right. And, there's no confusion about it. And, for your next couple of years here, this is what your goal is. And this is how to get it done. I'm showing you, I helped her get a ring. Her first time at Ursuline, it was probably the best thing. If you asked her those questions, she'd reminisce on that memory. That probably started off for a great journey for her. So, it's very touching when you look back and think about it. And I still talk to her to this day. Mm-hmm. And, that's my little one.
Now, describe to me, because I believe every Christmas break, y'all played in a big tournament in Delaware. They call it a Diamond State Classic. And I remember going there your senior year watching you play. Describe to me what it's like playing in a Diamond State Classic and the type of competition that's there.
Yeah, so I actually started seeing the Diamond State Classic when I was just a kid, watching, going and seeing Elena and Alyssa Thomas, who's in the WNBA now, Dara Taylor, who went to Caravel, Benaja Laney, who's in the WNBA, like all these teams, they recruited teams from California and New York and Texas and, Midwest places that were nationally recognized. And for a tournament in Delaware to hold that, one, who's coming to Delaware to play basketball? Who's coming to Delaware in general? Right. So that was great for us to kind of get that exposure and to build that. And then at the same time, it was very successful. I remember playing a lot of competitive teams. I knew that every Christmas, this was going to be a different type of performance. So I always had to get mentally prepared for it. I knew a lot of college coaches would be there, which is another great thing for Delaware to hold this recruiting event in a sense. Was great for players like Elena Delle and myself and Benaja Laney and, these Delaware kids to kind of get more recognition and stand out more. So I miss the Diamond State Classic. I think it's a great tournament, and it was very competitive. I usually ended up getting first team for the tournament. That's another thing too. Like this tournament held awards and trophies and recognition where it's like, if you have the opportunity to be MVP of this game, to be first team of the tournament, it's competitive, and that's what I like, about the sport. So
now your senior year, y'all go on to the championship game. Y'all played Caravel. Describe to me what that game was like.
To be honest, I mean, I feel like my mentality, and we've trained a lot together, and where my vision is. That was my game for sure. But that's also, that doesn't make me feel better about myself. It just is what it is. Like I said, I was a senior in high school. I had already kind of accomplished more major things during my journey.
Right.
And this was just like, why would you not do this? Why would you not get this? Why would you not make this happen? So, if this didn't happen, the downside of it would have been way worse than just making it happen, getting the job done, and then boom, I'm at Villanova. So it was just a nice way to seal the deal, end my career on a good note. And, just bring some, I knew what it was like to win a state championship. I knew what it was like to get awards. A couple of my teammates never won a state championship, so it was more for them. It was more for, John. I didn't want to, me and John have a great relationship. I wanted to end that on the best way possible,
Right.
State championship is the highest goal of the season, so why would you not go get that?
Now, talk to me about, because I feel like John is probably one of the most underrated trainers, I would say, in Delaware and the surrounding area, and also like unappreciated as a coach, even though like Ursuline may not be as talented as they used to be, but like they always prepare. You could tell the kids are always getting better. Talk to me about like what it's like playing for John and how he helps girls and not just girls, players develop overall, because I know he works out guys too.
Yeah. My player coach relationship with John, he's almost like my second dad, and we still have a great relationship to this day. Nothing has changed, but he will really push you. And I remember the ups and downs that I had from this, because I was this successful, great basketball player, name recognition, and he was on my ass every day for everything. And he didn't want to see me get comfortable. He knew that I was going to play at a high level, and he knew that when he no longer had his hands on me, that he wanted to make sure I was going to be successful in that next stage of my life and that I was prepared for it. He didn't want to send me off to a place and make sure I wasn't ready to handle, coaches screaming at your face and the amount of pressure and accountability and how to, build yourself when everybody else is trying to do the same thing. He really wanted to make sure that I was prepared and set for that. He also didn't treat anybody different on our team. Everybody knew I was the basketball star and was going to play D1, but he treated everybody on the team like they were also going to go play D1 on a full ride.
Right.
And so he knows how to build team chemistry. He knows how to create unity, and he knows how to put players in great situations where they don't see it for themselves at first.
Right.
And it's interesting because I was able to help assistant coach him this previous winter season. And he
Mhm.
still runs the same offense, the same plays, strategies that I ran as a kid at my Ursuline time. And the talent is definitely different. The skill level and experience level is different, but he
Mhm.
hasn't changed his strategy. And there's something interesting to think about that. Does he believe that it can potentially be the same as it was a couple years ago? Or he doesn't feel that he has to adjust based on the types of kids he has. He knows that he can create those kids and um, get them to dive into his program, and he'll show them that. It's almost, I kind of compare him a little bit to Jay Wright at Villanova.
Mhm.
Players come in to this program and he's able to transform them in the best way possible. And this player now has multiple ways of scoring and being versatile on the court that they never saw themselves doing.
Right.
And I think he's able to open a lot of doors for kids, even when they don't go play basketball at a D1 level. He still helps them get into other doors in life, and he's such a resourceful outlet and person to talk to, and very personable. That is my guy.
Yeah, he's definitely a great basketball mind. I gotta definitely get him on the show soon. Um,
Hmm.
now talk to me because it was a crazy time. Both of the top players in the state, Delaware, your class of 2015, right?
Yeah.
You and Dante, both top players in the state for girls and boys, both committed to Villanova. Like, what was that like? I remember you guys signing, and then because he goes to an all boys school, you go to an all girls school. The Delaware Online made y'all take a picture together. It was like, yo, I'm going to Villanova. It was crazy.
Yeah. No, it was definitely forced. You could say that. A lot of things were forced, but that's news, that's media. We can tell
Right.
that we knew that was going to happen. I I'd committed first. Kind of, there was some time in between our commitments, so it wasn't like it was this big major announcement.
Right.
But you know, uh, it's interesting because I look back on it now and I'm like, wow, we did actually like do all of that. Like that is like a unique story,
Right.
and it's something to hold on to. It definitely has a lot of value to it. We trained, even before we had this unity of Villanova and all state players and Sally's and Ursuline. We were in the gym training before any of that, before any of the recognition, before people really even knew his name as big as it got. And um, we're eighth graders, freshmen, high school, sophomore, playing one on one, working John Noonan's basketball camps together. We have mutual friends. There's so much more than that. So it was definitely highlighted as like the two biggest stars from Delaware going to the same university.
Right.
And at the time, before he committed, Jay, it was very Villanova wanted me to kind of get Dante to come to Villanova because at the time, a lot of people thought he was going to go to Syracuse.
Right.
And, I really didn't have any influence in it. I didn't gear him towards Villanova. We didn't really have a conversation about how great Villanova was, and I loved it. And oh my gosh, Dante, you should go there. It'd be perfect. No,
Right.
that never happened. He actually kind of told me Villanova's off my list.
Mm.
And then like 2 days later, he ends up committing to Villanova, and that was solely his decision. I don't even know what changed it.
Right.
But it's great. I'm glad it worked out the way it did. We were, friends in college, of course. He was friends with my friends. I was friends with his teammates. So it all worked out.
Yeah,
I'm still friends with his family. It's great.
it's a crazy story. And then y'all both won the chip. So it was like, yeah, what's going on here? Villanova taking over Delaware. But
Right.
so you decided to go to Villanova. What was the biggest transition going from high school to college?
I will say that I made sure that, you know, I was ready for any transition possible.
Mhm.
I also knew what it was like to mentally prepare to go into a next stage, to go to a higher level, to go into a new environment. I knew how to do that. So I made sure, like a year before that I was definitely ready. My training was up to par. I was pretty serious when it came to training and, getting my body right and my mind and making sure that I could handle these types of pressures. So the only thing that I will say that was different is definitely just the speed of the game, the athleticism. Girls are a lot stronger, faster, taller, and everybody kind of has a skill set. So it's not like in high school where, okay, those are the two best players and you can kind of just forget about everybody else.
Right.
No, everybody has some sort of skill set. Everybody's definitely some sort of a threat when it comes to the court. But then, when you talk about domination and trying to be the standout best player, you definitely have to put in more work and be ahead of everybody else. So, those things that I saw as a transition were only really in my freshman year. And unfortunately, the senior point guard my freshman year ended up tearing her ACL. Wow. So I had this great opportunity to start for my team for a couple of games. And that was, a time for me to be like, hey, I got to prove myself. Not just like, okay, this freshman should start because she's one of the better players, but, this freshman should dominate this game.
Right.
And my first debut starting, I dropped 30 points against Georgetown.
Ooh.
And it was probably one of the best games that I remember of my entire career. But, I had to be ready for that moment. Mm-hmm. And I knew that I was, and that was something that I saw before I got to campus. What happens if I do have to start? What happens if I do have to win this game or come out and really show as a freshman how to dominate the league? I have to not just be ready for my college coach to yell at me and be ready for practice and be ready for the girls to like me. No, I got to be ready to dominate and really stand out.
Did it feel like you were at Ursuline all over again? Like how you had to prove yourself and show that you belong?
Definitely a little bit. I will say that I had to prove myself more with my coaching staff. It wasn't really that I had to prove to my teammates. No. I also kind of was one of the more successful basketball players coming into the program.
Right.
Just my name recognition and the awards and, the ratings and things like that. People knew I was also recruited from higher level schools, and this was my decision to kind of come in and really dominate as a player.
Right.
And, that mentality didn't change whether who was there or who didn't like it. Like, I was being that person regardless of what you thought or what you had to say about it. But, and in college, it's really every man for himself. And that's what, that's the real world. Everybody realizes that one day. But, you have your team, you have your university that you're playing for, you have the administration and your scholarship and your business relationship with the school. But at the same time, every man is for himself because, everybody wants to be the most successful. Everybody wants to be the standout and be bigger and win this award and, be the coach's favorite player and play the most and do all of these things. And at the same time, it can get crazy because it's like a job, but I made sure that I was going to dominate in every way possible. And when, my college coach actually told me to transfer 3 times my freshman year.
Wow.
How do you handle that as a player? And I know he didn't want me to transfer. I know he didn't want me to leave. He knew that these next couple of years was going to be great. He could see that. And I knew that I gave that to him when I was a player on the court. I made sure that he trusted in me for the next couple of years, that his decision to give me this scholarship was one of the best decisions he ever made. I made sure there was no confusion, no hesitation about me being in this program and representing Villanova University. And at the same time, I also tried to make it very known that, this is a two-way business relationship. You guys need me too. And, there has to be some sort of respect there. And there definitely was.
Right.
And you build that over your career. It's very different than high school and things like that. But I had to prove to my coaches, this is a Villanova system. You guys like to pass a lot and cut and stuff. But, I am also trying to be the star of the show every game. So there's going to be times where I'm going to take full control of this game.
Right. Now, your freshman year, the men's team actually wins the NCAA championship.
Yep.
So what was that like back on campus? Like what was
I was like, damn, this is college. I get 3 more years of this. This is crazy. Best decision I ever made. No, but I think especially for them, like just witnessing that entire journey that they went through. No, a lot of people didn't think they would get the win or even go that far. And I knew from just being a basketball player, I was like, oh my gosh, I know this type of journey, like where your team chemistry is just on point. You're winning every game. You're playing your hardest. Things are just in your favor because the energy is great. And to be on campus and witness that for my freshman year, I knew I was in a special place. It was wild. It was wild. You can imagine it. The whole campus shuts down, whole city shuts down, damn near.
right?
Everybody's in a rage. I mean, it's a college town, so
Right.
you're gonna get what you imagine. But at the same time, just because my team wasn't playing on a national level or in the NCAA tournament, I knew that I had to play up to the same potential as the boys.
Right.
Even though I wasn't in that men's program, I wasn't on their team. I knew that, they were honestly, in a sense, my biggest competition. And you're thinking, like, why would you kind of create that, or how do you even see that as competition? No, I just knew that if I wanted my name to be in conversation, if I wanted to be respected at the same level that they were, that I had to make sure I put myself out there. I had to make sure I was building my network and doing other things that I couldn't do with my team in the basketball court, but somehow, use basketball to your advantage and get your name out there and be respected and build business relationships and connections. And, that was something that I was learning throughout my career at Villanova, but I made sure, like, I'm just as recognized.
Right.
I'm just as respected, even though I don't have this ring. My team is not on this national championship floor right now, and our school is not as excited for our women's team. But guess what? They knew Adrianna Hahn.
Now, after your freshman year, you get unanimous all rookie team. What was your mindset going into your sophomore season?
It's interesting because when I first got to college, I didn't even know that there was all these types of awards and recognitions that you could get, like first team, this conference, sixth man of the year, whatever. And, I really, I wanted to win a Big East ring, Big East championship, and I never did. Ironically, my 4 years at Villanova, we never won a Big East tournament game. We always lost in the second round. We always had a bye, and then we lost in the second round. That's probably the worst. Like, really, when I look back on my career, that's the thing that I'm most upset about, is not even winning a Big East tournament game. And ironically, it's kind of like that Saney situation with my sophomore and junior year. We beat that team twice in the regular season, and then we end up playing them, and we can't win, and they're like a 9th, 10th seed. So what's the problem? Sometimes things just happen in that way.
Right.
But for my, again, I just wanted to be recognized. The Big East was also a very competitive league. We had girls go to the WNBA from my class. My class was very competitive. I actually believe that my class was one of the best classes to be in the Big East.
Right.
And, that's interesting because you're talking about UConn and Maya Moore and all those girls back in the day, but I still truly believe that my class was pretty dominant. So there was a lot that I had to fight for. Not only did I want my team to be successful, but I personally also knew that I was competing against better players, just as good players in the league. And I had to make my name be in conversation. So, if my team wasn't on that same page, they knew where my head was. And so, sometimes, like I said, every man is for himself. You don't realize that you have to focus more on your personal goals, but in a sense, I kind of did. So it was very, did I think about personal goals more than team goals? I would say, yeah, a little bit. So, my sophomore year, I'm just thinking, get more, do more.
Describe to me how what's the difference of your non-conference grade games compared to your in-conference game in the Big East. Like, what's the difference?
Yeah, Big East games are really competitive. You know, when you are in a conference, you know who your top four best teams are, and it kind of stays that way. Like during your career, it doesn't really change, which sucks for the other programs, but you
Right.
know, you're kind of prepared in that way. And actually, you know, I really loved my out of conference games. And I wanted my coach to schedule like the best teams in the country for us to play against, even if I
Right.
knew we were gonna lose.
Right.
You know, I look at the out of season games more as a type of experience for your regular conference games. And, you know, if you can prepare for those out of season games and play the best competition and then you go into your conference league, you know, you might be the better team that had the best preparation for the season.
Mhm.
And, you know, I think that has a huge effect on it because for our regular season games, you know, we played Duke, Georgia, Virginia Tech, JMU. You know, we're playing ACC teams, and this was even for me. Remembering when I wanted to play in the ACC, I'm like, this is a great opportunity for me to show, you know, not man, she should have played in the ACC. More like, oh, more ACC schools should have recruited her. You
Right.
know, I had to make sure that I showed out. You know, and a lot of players, you know, it's a business, and you can't forget that. So I remembered, dang, UNC never offered me, Duke never offered me. You know, this is my time to shine and to show that coach you know, I wanted them to regret not giving me a scholarship or not recruiting me when I was, you know, why didn't you choose me as your shooting guard, point guard? Because guess what? I'm killing your point guard right now. And that was always my mentality to show out,
Right.
especially in the out of conference games.
What was it like playing at Duke, and how did you do?
So we played at Duke one year, and then they came to us the next year. So playing in Cameron Indoor, I mean, that's just crazy. It was the best experience ever.
Right.
We lost that game, but I had 6 threes, which I think stood out a little bit.
Right.
And then the next year, we actually should have won the game too. But the next year, they came to us, and we ended up beating them by like 30 points. It was a
Wow.
blowout. Yep. And at the time, you know, they had Lexi Brown on the team, who's now in the WNBA.
Okay.
They have a couple girls who are still there that were younger. Some are playing over. I mean, but it's Duke,
Right.
you know. So my team, we killed it that game, and I think you know, we knew that we should have won the game prior to, but you know, also playing against that coach, you know, she has a really big name. She's pretty like myself as a player, very dominant, very
Right.
confident in herself, really wants to bring her program as being one of the best in the nation. So I'm like, this is my time to perform in front of her. You know, I'm gonna give it my all.
So your junior year, fast forward to your junior year, you guys make the tournament, correct? Yep.
Yes.
And y'all play South Dakota State in the first round. How talk to me about that game, and what was your mindset going into the tournament?
Yeah. It was great for our team to be qualified into the tournament because, like I said, that doesn't happen a lot for Villanova. So it
Right.
was like, yes, we're in. You know, we're thankful to just be here. You know, now we got to get down to business, and we're in the, you know, waiting room, waiting on the TV to see who we're gonna play, and it's like South Dakota State. You're like, who is that?
Right.
You know, and it's not, it's nothing against them. It was just I'd never been to South Dakota.
Right.
Don't know one player. What type of basketball is that? Like, you know, who knows? So I think we were like an 8th seed, they were a 9th seed, or vice versa, and that game actually went into overtime. We're playing at University of Notre Dame,
Mm.
and you know, their team was really good. They had a lot of shooters, a lot of good basketball movement, very similar to the Villanova team. But you know, I was like, man, if we win this game, we get to play Notre Dame. Like that's the next team we're gonna play.
Wow.
And you know, it wasn't even because of that. I would still try to win any game I'm playing basketball. But you know, I knew that, like I said, there's levels to this. So
Right.
if I have the chance to play in front of Muffet McGraw at Muffet McGraw's gym with
Right.
the best player in the country, Arike Gumbawale, I'm beating South Dakota State. That's a fact. So, you know, and we did win. like I said, they actually hit a buzzer beater to go into overtime, and I was pissed. My team was scared, and this was the first time all of us have kind of been on this stage.
Right.
But we pushed through, and then we went on to play Notre Dame, and that was an even better experience.
Who was on that Notre Dame team? Do you remember?
Yes. Rika Gumbawale was point guard. You had Marina Mabry, who was also in the WNBA. It's kind of a shooting guard, both whatever. There was Jackie Young, who was also in the WNBA. You had, I forget their names, but they had two really big posts. One's in the WNBA now. Catherine Westfield is another girl. So they, and they had a couple McDonald's All-Americans on the bench and the best highlighted top girls in their class.
Right.
So they're just a program at Notre Dame, but it was tied at halftime at our game.
Wow.
And I was really thinking, like, yo, we could pull this game. We could beat Notre Dame. A lot of people don't know that Notre Dame used to be in the Big East Conference, so there was like this Villanova-Notre Dame rivalry from previous years, and Muffet McGraw actually went to St. Joe's, so there was like this, Philly. It was intense.
Right.
Muffet and my coach Harry Peretta had history of coaching against each other, so it was like, and then when the score's tied at halftime, you're thinking, is this really happening?
Right.
And so, a team with a team like that, you cannot create turnovers because their turnovers will turn into automatic points. And so in the second half, a couple of our girls turn it over, and then it's a 10-point lead to a 20-point lead like that. Wow. So that's what happened, why we lost the game. But, my same mentality, once again, I knew Enrique was going to be the number one pick in the WNBA draft. I knew Muffet was one of the top coaches in the nation. I knew that, especially if I wanted to be in the WNBA, coming from Villanova and being so politically judged, that I would have to show out for this game.
Right.
And, I did for sure. But no, it was great.
Definitely a great experience. Was that y'all first time making a tournament? Like, did y'all have a drought? Was that the first time?
That was the first and only time I went to the NCAA tournament as a player.
Okay. And how long was it before Villanova went to the the tournament before you got there? Like, what was
I think it was 5 years.
Okay, it was like a 5-year gap, so you brought them back.
Mm-hmm.
You helped bring them back. So talk about your senior year. So what's your mindset going? Because usually girls, unlike boys, they usually have to do their 4 years at college, then declare for the draft before thinking about going to the WNBA. So what was your mindset your senior year, and and talk to me about what happened that season?
I was really determined to finish my senior year off strong. That was every level that I was at. If this was going to be my last run through, always give it your all, dominate. At the time, I think my injuries kind of really limited me. It was now 4 years that I was playing basketball in college and playing every minute of every game, every practice, doing everything I can. I wasn't focusing on my body enough. I will say I was a little beat down. It was a lot of work. Right. It's a full-time job. It's more than a full-time job, actually.
Yeah.
So, there's some things that I was dealing with at the time, and I was trying to also figure out, what I was going to be. Was I going to continue playing women's basketball? Was I going to, go into media production in LA and be this big star? These were things that were going through my head. And neither happened, actually. Right. I didn't become this big Hollywood star in LA doing sports media production, and I didn't go play professional basketball.
Wow.
But, I had to figure that out, and that's a whole nother journey that I really matured over time with. But, my senior year, we went to the NIT. I think we ranked third in the season after, and we ended up playing West Virginia for my last game at West Virginia, which was cool.
Right.
I remember my last college shot that I took, and I missed it, so I'm pissed. But it is what it is,
So I believe you finished your career at Villanova the all-time leading three-pointer in
Yes.
shots?
Yep. And the Big East.
In the Big East? So for
Yeah.
Villanova in the conference, you're the all-time leader in three-pointers made.
Yeah. So for Villanova as a school,
Mm.
for the women's program, I beat the all-time three-point record, most three-pointers in their career. And then same for the Big East. So any player that played in the Big East, I have the most three-pointers in their career.
So kind of advice would you give, especially for young girls? Not like, how did you get your jumper so consistent, and how do you continue to work on it or develop it over the course of these years?
Yeah, I will say that shooting is a craft. You have to perfect it.
Right.
So, I'm shooting in a chair with a medicine ball. I'm shooting constantly over and over again, getting my shot up here, getting it stronger. I'm in the gym. My dad started making me shoot damn near from half court. And at the time, I'm airballing. I'm trying to get my form, keep it right. And I'm like, I'm never going to shoot these shots in a game. And then a couple years later, I'm dribbling across half court and just letting it fly.
Right.
So, like I said, you have to believe in it and see it before you actually start doing it, and it becomes just second nature.
Right.
But I worked on my shot every day. Even if I had a bad shooting game, that night I'm going right to the gym. Like you don't wait. You don't let it settle. You don't carry negative energy. You fix it right away.
Right.
And then you perfect it. Then my high level training, I'm in a drill. I have to make 5 in a row before I move on to the next move. And I could be doing that same crossover move for an hour, but I have to make 5 in a row. The way you apply yourself in practice and training also, helps definitely get your shot mentality better. As shooters, you have to shoot consistently and have the confidence to do it. Will you get a steal and shoot a 3-pointer when you could have had a breakaway layup and no one's in front of you? I did that in college, and I did shoot the shots that nobody probably would have ever taken, or, oh my God, I can't believe she did that, but sometimes you got to break those barriers for yourself and break those barriers for your coach relationship and for your team. It's hard for other people who aren't shooters to understand a shooter's mentality because it is very selfish.
Right.
But at the same time, if you're a shooter that's shooting 45% from the 3-point line, you're doing something right. And if a team has a shooter who's shooting 45% from the line and she's not just a stand shooter, she's the point guard too, that's like 2 and 1.
Now, after your senior year, you declare for the draft. Now, talk to me, because WNBA is only 12 teams. How hard is it? Unlike, you know what I mean? Of course, the NBA is hard as well, but for girls, I'm like, I feel like it's way even hard because it's less. Not only do you get paid less, but it's less, spots, right? It's just naturally less spots, so it's going to be harder to get in a WNBA, so to speak. Only the top of the top is McDonald's All-Americans that they can get in the WNBA. So, talk to me, how hard is it to get in the WNBA and what that competitive level is like? Because I know you played against a few WNBA players.
Yeah, I did. I played against almost every WNBA player besides the ones who are from Europe or who are 30 years old. And it's unfortunate because I know that I should be there. I know that I can be there. And it was, I did WNBA drafts and I went to tryouts and things like that. But I'm like, who is making money from this? Who is who's going to get me on a team? Who is going to get me here? What do I need to do this? And it's unfortunate because it's a lot of universities helped other kids. I didn't really have that. I didn't have that well-known agent that was going to open the doors for me. My team didn't win a national championship or be in the NCAA tournament like that. So who's, thinking about the point guard from Villanova?
Right.
And so that were a little bit of my limitations. But at the same time, I also knew that there was something that was inside of me that I was thinking that said I could have bigger opportunities using basketball in a different way.
Right.
And, I'm still figuring that out to this day. But at the same time, I believe that I have bigger opportunities than some WNBA players. Now, I still would love to be in the WNBA. I
Right.
talk about it every day. I'm in the gym every day. I'm actually probably the best shape of my life right now.
Wow.
And that's crazy to imagine because it's like, what use is it going towards? Nothing. I
Right.
don't play basketball like that. So, I'm still trying to this day. I'm talking to agents all the time. And, and they say, you got to go overseas and have a little bit more playing experience. I'm like, I'm not going overseas to make $1,500 a month. I'm not doing that. That's damn near disrespectful.
Right.
I can't do that. And, it's not about money and, wherever you make the most money, that's the place you got to go. No.
Right.
But at the same time, I found a lot of growth in my basketball training business. I think I have more of an influence and dedication for that. Because I'm doing what I'm doing now, I don't really regret. I don't feel like I'm missing time or missing something because I'm not in the WNBA. Now, again, I would love to be in the WNBA. I think I could for sure play in the WNBA and be a very prominent player on my team, no matter who I'm playing for. But it's so unfortunate that, I didn't get to do that. And I still hope that, because it's like, all right, I could train all the time, which I do. But, if I have to go overseas and play in Sweden for 1 year and then potentially not even get onto a team, I miss the opportunity to turn my business into what it is doing now into something bigger.
Right.
And, it's the relationships that I built with my kids and showing them the path and journey that I had and what I learned from basketball and who I created as this basketball player profile was so much more powerful than me not being in the WNBA.
Right.
If I had to choose being in the WNBA versus, what I've built, it's not even a question. I'm not losing what I've built. I'm not losing my foundation. I'm not losing the connections and relationships and opportunities. There's no way. And, why would I kind of have to choose? But that's where my life brought me to for some reason. So, it's either like confront the situation, find out what's more valuable and live with that, or hold on to, something that you didn't do forever and carry it as baggage.
Right. I feel like your purpose met your passion. So that's why it's like, that's why you're so dedicated with the training now, which is definitely a good thing. And I feel like it should be more female trainers, especially training basketball, especially with your resume. So it's good that you're
100%.
giving back, to the younger generation, getting them girls and boys better. Um, what would you say? I seen a picture that you posted when the late great Kobe Bryant passed away. What was Kobe Bryant's impact on your basketball career, and what did you think about his daughter Gianna?
So Kobe Bryant was my favorite player of all time by far, still is.
Mhm.
And, I always just loved his mentality. I knew that there was never going to be an excuse for me to create, that I wasn't going to work hard or I was going to quit on this or not get this goal, because Kobe would never do that. Kobe
Right.
would never act like that. Kobe would never say that. Kobe would never do that. It was always Kobe, Kobe, Kobe. What would he do? What would he not do?
Right.
And, it's so interesting. And I will hold on to this memory forever. But, I'm thinking as a basketball player, I hope I get to meet Kobe one day. I hope, I can build my name big enough where, he might need to work with Adrianna Hahn, or I might get to meet Kobe and there might be some value in that.
Right.
He might, I might, there might be a reason why Kobe Bryant wants to know who I am or wants to know more about me. And, then he retired and I was like, dang, I'm never going to see him playing Staples in LA. I saw him every time he came to Philly. But, and, I understood his daughter relationship in the basketball world because I had that with my father. And so, I knew Kobe was going to be like that. There was a reason why I loved him so much and loved his mentality and the way he presented himself as a basketball player on and off the court, that I was not second guessing why he wouldn't try to grow the women's game, why he wouldn't give that same opportunity to his daughter that he had, probably even a better one, with more guidance and more influence and more hands-on.
Right.
And when my junior year, when we played Notre Dame in the NCAA tournament and lost, I actually went to the NCAA tournament where Notre Dame won that year, so I got to see the games. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting in the media section, and they're like, you got to move, somebody's coming. And me, I'm like, who's coming? Who is this? They better be big. Take me out of my seat. I'm watching the game. An hour goes by and nobody shows up, so I'm even more fired up. I'm like, who is this guy? I'm now standing watching the game, and they had to clear this huge section. So it's like halftime, and we're walking back in the tunnel, and I'm with about 5 or 6 girls with the assistant athletic director of Notre Dame. I know who this lady was. She said, it's Kobe Bryant, and nobody even knows what I'm thinking or my obsession with him, in a sense.
Right.
So we walk into a room because she allows for us to meet him, which was great. So blessed. And I'm walking into this room, and the first thing he says is, Villanova, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, how are your knees? And I was like, injuries. Like, I didn't even know what to say at this point, right? Everybody in the room was so startled. And to think, like, this entire time as a player, where I was so ingrained in developing Kobe's mentality, and I was so determined to be like him and for him to recognize me, and never in a million years would I think Kobe Bryant knew my name or knew anything about my journey and my knee injuries and my story. Come to find out, I walk into a room and he recognizes me, and he knows facts about me. So I know he's seen me play. I'm sure he showed his daughter a little bit of my playing highlights. And granted, I'm not the only one. You could tell how many women's basketball players were invested in Gianna's life and in, making sure that they built a strong relationship with Kobe himself too. Right. And, for me to be one of those kids, right? You have Sabrina Ionescu, who spoke at his, ceremony in LA. You have Arike Ogunbowale, who had a great relationship with Kobe. And, you have Jewel Lloyd, who's in the WNBA now, Marina Mabry, and Adrianna Hahn.
Right.
Like, I'm not in that WNBA conversation. I'm not on that NCAA tournament national conversation that these girls brought their Oregon and Notre Dame program and UConn to. Of course they did.
Right.
Right? But me, I had not nothing, but just my hard work and dedication and my mentality that I learned from him. Mm-hmm. So, I'm just thinking from when I was a kid, like my room is literally yellow and purple walls. Kobe Bryant fat head everywhere. I collected everything Kobe Bryant, almost like a weirdo. I got made fun of it for it, damn near.
Right.
So, it's like all those battles that I dealt with that I was like, this is who I am. I don't care. I don't care what you think. I don't care what you have to say. I love Kobe, Black Mamba for life. And then it all makes sense one day at this great moment in my life where he knows who I am. There's nothing more. And it's almost like, damn, my life's complete. Like, seriously.
Right.
I'm like, I don't need to accomplish anything else.
Right.
No,
I met Kobe. I'm cool.
Right. But, in a sense, it's like, especially now with his passing and how unfortunate that was, you're just, how do I carry this into the world for the rest of my life? And I will, as a player, I knew to never give up because of his mentality and to always aim for your goals and beat every obstacle. But now there's no question. There's no, it's almost like I have a fire, more of a even bigger fire sparked in my body.
Right.
And, I'm not going to let him down. I'm not going to let Gianna down. And to imagine, how blessed I am to have that father-daughter relationship and for her to not experience that just literally breaks my heart, because I give 90% of my basketball skills and talent to my father. Right. That's how much of an influence he is. Granted, I had Kobe's mentality. I knew I was going to be the best. I worked my ass off, right? But the amount of influence and dedication and impact that my dad had, I would not be the type of even close to the player that I was. So I know that she would have had a great career. I know that her and her father would have created great memories and had a very long journey. And he was going to create this brand new life that nobody, this was the start of his new life.
Right.
He was going to change the women's game. He was going to change youth sports and basketball in general, and even just community and society. He was a killer. He was not going to stop just because he wasn't playing basketball. So I also, at the time was dealing with this. And, I was like, if Kobe can do it, I can do it for sure.
Right. Now, that you mentioned that a lot this past season, especially, a lot of more NBA players have been bringing attention to the WNBA, wearing their hoodies, supporting their games, giving them shout outs. What are your thoughts on the WNBA basketball game today and also this past season with the Seattle Storm winning?
I think it's great that obviously NBA players are supporting women. I think all athletes should support all athletes. But I don't think that that's what's going to change the exposure for the WNBA. They need to create their own product. They need to create their own niche. That's what the NBA did with Jordan and, dunking and, even just our players now, like different players now, Curry, Allen Iverson, Giannis, LeBron. All these players brought a different style of basketball to the NBA. So the game is always changing because of the types of players and the different skill sets that they bring and the type of basketball that's being played. So, the WNBA has to figure that out. It's great that they're being supported from the NBA, but, I wouldn't want to use the NBA to heighten our audience. Like, you don't need that in a sense. But, I think it was great that they were able to have a season this year and be in the bubble.
Right.
It's unfortunate to see that some of the better players weren't playing at the time because of, social reasons and social cultural reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm glad that it happened. I was able to see, a couple rookies perform really well. I think they had great seasons. It was interesting, but like I said, I watched the WNBA, but at the same time, my player mentality is always ingrained when I'm watching the WNBA. I'm studying the game of basketball. I'm, commenting on the playmaking of the game and the girls' skill sets, but at the same time, I'm thinking I should be right in that mix. I should be right on that court. Oh man, if she took that shot, I wouldn't have done that. This is what I would have done. I'm imagining all these scenarios, so it's different, being a player.
Right.
It's always going to be competitive.
Now, last segment of our show, Coach Quil, top 10 questions. We're going to run through this for you. So what's your career high?
34 points.
Okay. And who was that for?
Oh, I think so. I got it in Villanova.
Mm-hmm.
And this I count for AAU and stuff too, but I think it was against Marquette.
Okay.
Or Xavier conference tournament.
Okay. And what's your favorite hoop sneaker?
Kobe's.
Lows.
I'm a low girl.
Me too. I'm a Kobe fan too. What's your favorite artist listen to before a game?
I feel like everybody knows this. Nicki Minaj is my girl.
Okay.
So when we did our videos in high school, the Nicki Minaj songs.
Yeah.
She's a little, she's doing her family things and whatnot, so she's not as active. But I love, Lil Durk, Lil Wayne, Drake, Chris Brown, SZA. I'm listening to Summer Walker before games. I'm an R&B type girl, so I don't, the music it's more. I love my type of music and I can put it into any area or anything that I'm doing in life. It's more just how do I vibe with that in my situation right now? How can I get my mind prepared for this?
Okay. All right. Now, who was your favorite, you could do WNBA or NBA player growing up?
Kobe Bryant for sure. I loved Dirk. I loved, Ginobili, Kyrie. Allen Iverson. I loved all types of players. In the WNBA, I loved Diana Taurasi. Simone Augustus was a killer. Kathy Pondexter for sure. That's my girl. So I loved, I also wasn't like, oh, that's the shooter, that's the point guard, she's the best. I love that. No, if somebody had a skill set that I thought was super valuable, that's the player that stands out in my eyes.
All right. Who's the most underrated player you play with?
Oh, I would say Michaela Benson from UVA, the one who I also played Team Takeover with.
Okay.
She was a killer. She was a year older than me. Ended up playing at Georgetown, but that's a girl who kind of stands out during my time. Sure.
Okay. Who's the best defender you played against or with?
Honestly, you don't kind of like remember one standout person. I can name a couple like really good defensive players, but I'm gonna give the most like arrogant basketball answer to this question. Not a lot of kids could stop me, so it was like I was never going to allow somebody to be the best defender that stopped me, or allow somebody to claim that they gave Adrianna Hahn her worst game. No, that's not happening.
Right.
So, very different.
Was it a team that you hated playing against? Like a team that would just like...
Oh, yeah, for sure. Creighton.
Okay.
Creighton basketball in Omaha, Nebraska. Those girls are definitely great chemistry, excellent program, super dived in.
Okay. What's the most someone scored on you?
Oh, probably like 20 points, which I hate to say that.
Right.
But it was, I actually remember it was against Temple. They had two great guards, and they beat Villanova. We lost by 30 that game. It was over. But both of those girls had like 20 points combined, and, they were the guards on the team. Granted, did they score all the points against me? No, but I take accountability for that because that was my opponent. That was my competition for that game.
Okay. Now, what's the best team you played on? You can say any level.
My Team Takeover team for sure.
Okay.
By far.
All right. Now, this next question, we usually ask when was your first dunk, but we'll ask when was the first time you made someone fall?
I feel like in my 4th grade boys league at the time.
You made a boys fall?
Oh yeah. And like honestly, making somebody fall in my head, like that's great, but that person still could have been playing great defense. True. Like their body just went over here a little bit more and they lost their balance and they fell, or the move was just too quick. Like, of course, if my body's going full speed to sliding, like I can fall. And a lot of people are kind of immature when those things happen in a game.
Yeah.
But, I did it in college too. Not as much, like I said, the girls are strong, you don't really, that doesn't really happen as often.
Right.
But, probably like all throughout my career, my handle was really tight. So I always was really crafty with my moves.
What kind of advice would you give to the younger generation about basketball?
I would say don't take advantage of the game. I've seen that way too often. Know what type of player and what you want out of it before you go into it. I mean, that's anything in life. I feel like advice in one thing can always pertain to something else. And, if you want to be an average player, you can be an average player. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
You don't have to be the biggest, the best player on the team, the one who scores the most points, the one who gets all the awards. There's certainly a ton of value in terms of what kind of player you are, but commit fully 100% into it. And if you don't know, research. Don't have this idea or, I don't have a dad who's coaching and training me. I don't have, the best basketball gym. I don't have a basketball. Like there are ways to figure things out and do things. Like I said, I was really blessed to have all of those connections and relationships.
Right.
So I was really put into good shoes and good spaces in my life. But, it is a grind every day, and there's definitely more downs than ups. And that's what a lot of people have to remember, is that there are 10 times more downs than ups, but the ups are so great
Right.
that it doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel like those downs are holding you back, and this is constantly a struggle, and this isn't worth fighting for. No, it's actually the opposite. The downs are what makes you grow and learn and really heighten your ups and your goals, so that when you do get there, if you commit yourself and push through, that feeling and that sense of accomplishment is just out of this world.
Right. Well, I appreciate you taking time to talk to me. Come on the podcast today. Big shout out to the Hahn Hoops, man. How can girls or anybody who wants to work out with you, how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, no, I have my website, adriannahahn.com, hahnhoops@gmail.com. Everything's online, man. The social media, I'm all over the place. I have a basketball training business and my personal brand. They're kind of combined together.
Right.
But it's super easy to get in contact with me in a bunch of different places. So,
okay.
And I get new people every day. That's another thing. Don't be afraid to reach out or be new or come into our family. We are a family and we have open arms for sure.
And I seen you recently did a photo shoot with East Bay. How'd that go and what was that like?
Yeah, that's a great business relationship that I have. I've done a couple things for them previously. This time was a special female edition for female athletes conquering, obstacles as being female athletes and the stereotypes that come with that.
Right.
And, they wrote a great article for me. They came to the 76ers Fieldhouse, the gym that I work at, and did a photo shoot for me. I never thought I would be able to do these things, but, you create opportunities for yourself and make sure that those are long-lasting business relationships. I did Joel Embiid's newest sneaker drop for them, which was also really cool. So there's a ton of things that you can do. I know I'll be with East Bay for a very long time, and I'm super thankful for that. But, that's what I do. I use basketball as an outlet. I use basketball as my platform. And, even though I'm not a current basketball player right now, I'm using basketball to reach different areas, to grow the game of basketball. It's who I am. It's where I've learned values that can also be applied into other areas of life. And, I'm just growing that.
Well, that's dope. That's dope. Appreciate you again coming on the show, man. I'll be up soon to check you guys out in the gym.
Oh yeah, sure.
Again, this episode 4, man. You have a great day. I appreciate you stopping by. All right.
All right, my guy. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
No problem.
All right.